Every person I know who's done the healing work has experienced this same thing of people suddenly don't like you no more. And don't get me wrong, there's always going to be people who don't like you, and that's fine. But there's going to be people who genuinely you thought were your friends, lifelong, years, super long-standing friends, and suddenly they're going to switch up, and they're going to be all, you change, we like the old you, what's going on? And having to sit and reflect on that and realize, like, oh, they liked me better when I didn't have boundaries. Oh, they liked me better when I didn't know how to stand up for myself. Oh, they liked me better when I would let them mistreat me, when I would overgive and not take care of myself. Oh, they liked me better when I wasn't taking time for myself to recharge and to take care of myself and to love myself. Oh, and that hits different. It does hit different, and it's a really hard part of the healing process. In my mind, it's worth it, because once you lose friendships who only want you around for how much you pour into them and not into yourself, you make space for friendships who are going to actually be reciprocated, right? You make space for friendships that are going to give just as much as you do, and you're going to have a more healthy relationship together. You're able to find relationships that also have boundaries and also have self-love and care for themselves and all of those lovely things. But it's a very interesting realization. You start realizing it once you start to see a difference in the way you're showing up after healing. I started experiencing it years ago when it first started, and it kind of continued for a few years. As the more I progressed and the more I healed, the more my behaviors changed, the more my interests changed, and the less my old friends were interested in being around me. In fact, I had numerous people call me out for changing and being a different person. And I just want to say that if you're going on the healing journey and you're experiencing this, or if you have yet to experience it in your healing, know that this is a part of the healing journey that every person who's healed experiences. We don't always talk about it. I've noticed that. Like, the healing community doesn't always talk about these parts of healing. They don't talk about how it can be very lonely sometimes and isolated, how you lose friends by loving and bettering yourself. And it's very interesting because when that started happening, I started to think I was doing something wrong, and I started to think that I was being toxic, because a lot of people said I was. A lot of people said that taking care of myself and setting boundaries was me switching up and being horrible and toxic and rude. And I actually had to sit with my therapist and like repeatedly bring it up, and I had to like, dude, like, am I doing something out of line here? And I had to come to the very difficult but real realization that people didn't like that I was changing because they benefited from me not having boundaries. They have a problem with you setting boundaries because they benefit from you not having any. They have a problem with you having self-respect because they benefited from you not respecting yourself, therefore allowing them to not respect you. And it's a hard realization, and please allow yourself to grieve that. Please allow yourself to grieve that, because that is part of the healing process. And if you're hitting that point and you're having to choose between healing or keeping a friendship that you've had for a long time, I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you that I chose healing, and I think that it was the best decision I ever made in my life. I love all of the people that I have parted ways with, and I hope that they all have the most beautiful lives, and I send them so much love. I have no ill feelings for anybody that parted ways with me, no matter how we parted ways, no matter what beef there was. And still, I am eternally grateful that I chose myself, that I chose to love myself, that I chose to respect myself, that I chose to prioritize my needs, because I was able to find myself. And after finding myself, I was able to find friends who we both prioritize ourselves in a healthy way, right? We don't prioritize ourselves at the cost of other people. Whereas my prior connections, I constantly prioritized them over me, and they prioritized them over me as well. And it just wasn't healthy. But yeah, that was the best decision I've ever made. It helped me become the woman I am today, and I'm an entirely different woman than I ever was before. So if you're reaching that part of healing and it starts to get hard and you're starting to question if it's worth it, take a breath, take a minute, grieve it. Grieve these past connections, grieve this past you. Because when you heal like that, you are losing versions of you. And I've grieved so many versions of me. I would even write eulogies to past versions of me and have like a little ceremony, putting a past me to rest. And it's so strange, but it's real, and it's a common thing that all of us that have been through healing experience, we all grieve ourselves. We all grieve, like, before you start healing, you have an image of what your future is going to be like. And once you start healing, that image changes. And so you have to grieve this idea of a future you once thought you would have, because you realize that it's not actually what you want, right? And so having to grieve all of that is very natural. It's very common. And if you're thinking about quitting, just take a breath. Grieve a little bit, feel your feelings. Just slow down and feel the feelings before making any decisions, okay? I love you, and I support any decision you make.